Hello and welcome to another edition of the Skycast from Fantasy Football Scout, a sort of Sky Sports fantasy football version of the FPL focused Scoutcast. Injuries are starting to hit, differentials are emerging, and our captains are letting us down badly. But transfers are limited, so there's not much we can do about it, or is there? Lots to talk about anyway. My name is Joe, and joining me is Luke. Luke, how are you?
Yeah, I'm okay. Survived the shocker of a game week in Sky and FPL really for quite a
Yeah.
few, and yeah, for me as well. So, like you say, things are changing. So
Yeah.
it's time to maybe try and make some changes if we can to our teams. I think.
Yes, we need a new overhaul, but of course now we've got very limited transfers. I'm down to 10 in one and 13 in another, and I feel like the 13 one's quite flush with transfers. And I know many people are down to the maybe 5 to 10 mark, and even less than 5 for some. So anyway, what we'll do is we'll have a look at the fixtures, and what I like to do here is just sort of go before we look at our teams. We'll just have a look at the sort of key captaincies that we're thinking about here, and also we have to factor in that we are recording this on a Tuesday morning. There are rumours there could be an announcement, possibly, of a rearranged fixture between Arsenal and Man City, which would, in FPL terms, make a double game week. In Sky terms, means that we got an extra day and an extra captaincy chance, possibly next week. So we'll sort of factor that into the chat. May happen, might not. So let's looking at the fixtures. On the Saturday, standout fixtures look like Liverpool against Bournemouth, Arsenal against West Ham, and Wolves against Brighton. But in terms of captaincy, looks like a Liverpool person or Aubameyang. What do you think?
Yeah, it's been following the same routine for a while now. Stepping outside of Liverpool has generally been a risk. I know that Liverpool's form the last few games hasn't been great, but that man Van Dijk, he's still chipping in with the 5 points, even if they concede a goal. He's getting that passing bonus. We've also had Trent do really well on one of the other days. So Salah a little bit of a drop off, but you'd expect at home to Bournemouth. I think he quite likes playing them, if I remember. He'd still be a good pick. And obviously, yeah, Van Dijk remains the perma best option for me generally. So it's going to be him. I mean, Danny Ings is an outside shot. I think Southampton at home to Newcastle obviously was benched last week, so maybe a bit of a risk, but I would see him coming back in. So yeah, him as well is probably an option.
Yeah, I think there are a few options there for the two camps of people, really. Those who are doing really well in the rankings, maybe the top 100, and then those like us who aren't in the top 100, but we'd like to be as near as we can. So it could be an opportunity. Aubameyang is intriguing, but it's an annoying scheduling. Even if Arsenal have a fixture the following Wednesday, you can't. You would love the Arsenal fixture on the Sunday, perhaps.
Yeah, exactly.
Moving on to the Sunday, you got Chelsea against Everton, Manchester United against Man City. Options there. I think if you've got Richarlison, that could be an option, or Calvert-Lewin, and I guess Fernandes, who I got in a couple of weeks ago, who's saving my bacon so far. Fernandes against City, and then of course KDB. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you've nailed it there. I think Fernandes and KDB are going to be probably the heavily favoured captain options on that day. Fernandes still a bit of a differential, but he's climbing rapidly. I think in the top 10k he's actually still quite highly owned now, with good reason. Obviously, he's been absolutely smashing it. So good work there. Yeah, it's going to be Kevin De Bruyne or him, I would say. Richarlison, I've got, so I'll be captaining him away to Chelsea. It doesn't quite feel the same, but given the fact that Everton have been pretty good on goals and can seem to score against anyone, I can feel quietly confident he might pick something up in that. So, yeah, those are probably the only options for Chelsea. Tammy Abrahams looks like he might still be out. They can't really clean sheets. So if you had Reece James as a punt, he may be, but
Everton
bit of
are
a stretch,
such good attacking form at the moment.
Yeah.
And one of the things that intrigues me about the possibility of there being a double game week, so if you're listening to this and it's been confirmed, remove the word possibility from that. With Man City, you're playing on the Sunday. Suddenly, the scheduling is a bit in favour. So if you've got a Liverpool asset playing on the Saturday, perhaps the Salah. I've got Salah and Mane, so I was potentially looking at one of those two out for Kevin De Bruyne. Then that gives me De Bruyne as a captaincy option for that City game against Manchester United. Then I can possibly captain him for the midweek game should it transpire. Meanwhile, I believe the Liverpool's next fixture is against Everton, so I'm not. Merseyside derby is a tough one to call sometimes. I'm not. I don't think that's a must to have a Liverpool captaincy asset.
And also on top of that, they don't actually play that until the Monday, whereas Man City play it on the Saturday at home to Burnley. So potentially you could be getting 3 games for one there.
3 for 1.
Yeah, with a throw in an armband for that Sunday, and you can almost say it's a 4-1 if you haven't really got a good captain for that day, because it is a tricky day. So say you haven't got Fernandes.
Yeah.
So it suddenly looks very, very appealing, that move, doesn't it? As ever, it's probably going to have to be Kevin De Bruyne, because we worry about anyone else starting, sadly.
Yeah. So already, and also if there is that double game week game, that extra game next Wednesday for City and Arsenal, we'll know the teams as well. We can move the captaincy accordingly. But yeah, I like the look of that. If there is no extra fixture schedule, and that's going to be later, you've got sort of 2 for 1 anyway. But you could go for 3, as you said. It suggests sort of borderline 4 for 1. Yeah, good move there. Moving on to Monday, Leicester against Villa. Leicester, how about... Well, I brought in a couple of Leicester players. Brilliant. Wasting my transfers.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, they're there. Pereira, for me, looks like a good shout. If anyone's got Grealish still, I think he is a good shout as well. But other than that, don't know. Who do you think?
Yeah, it was really harsh last week, I think, on those of us like myself who've held Vardy and sort of kept faith with him. We've spent all that extra money to try and get, on paper, the better captain. But we've been discussing it for the weeks up to it, that the likes of Soyuncu and Pereira and stuff could probably do the same job as Vardy. And it turns out they did, in a way. I know Leicester lost, but at the end of the day, Vardy didn't even play. So a bit unfortunate. But now I've got a player who I think is still in my team at the moment. With that game on the horizon, the temptation, of course, is to keep him again and just keep that faith, because the timing's so key. You get rid of him now and then suddenly he plays, and that's a really good game. You get 2 or 3, but given his injury, his form, everything, I think you kind of justified in making the swap out now, especially if we do get that double game week. I think a lot of people will be eyeing up for Vardy too, the likes of Aubameyang or an Aguero or Kevin De Bruyne or whoever. So yeah, it's one I'm not sure about at the moment. But if Vardy's in your team, obviously you'd still consider him, and then it's going to be the who you've mentioned, Pereira, Soyuncu, and Grealish as a backup. I think at least we know he'll play. And Leicester in such bad form, you never know, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think Pereira for me, because there's the chance of passing and tackling bonus.
Yeah, I think he'd be very good for that game, to be honest.
I think he will against Villa. Norwich's defence is actually much better than Villa, so whilst it was I'm going to say it was a surprise in Leicester being defeated 1-0 to Norwich, but I think that would be a bigger surprise if Villa do that as well, because the Villa defence is so poor. I think there's a chance they could score. Samatta and Grealish starting to, Grealish is, I think he's occupying other players whilst he himself may not be scoring the points. Samatta clearly is, so some defenders perhaps taking their eye off Samatta. The other aspect is with Leicester. Yeah, you mentioned with Vardy as well. If you're looking at a Kevin De Bruyne for 2 matches or Vardy for 1, then it's a no-brainer. Just get rid. Let's have a look at our teams, because you mentioned just before we came on air that it'd be good to wildcard again, have an overhaul again. But I'll put your team up because other people will be in this position. It's an unfortunate position because you're looking at some flags here. At the moment you've got Alisson, you've got 4-4-2, Alisson, Van Dijk and Robertson. Then you've got Aurier, who was a surprise star of the game week past, Alexander-Arnold. Then you've got Deulofeu out for the season. Traore, his arm is coming out literally of its socket every match, and it's just horrible to watch. And it's a massive arm as well. It's as big as quite a large bodybuilder's leg. That's how massive his arm is. Barnes, Grealish, Ings and Jimenez up front. So looking at that, you mentioned you would like, a new overhaul. So first of all, tell me what you're realistically going to do with this, but what would you like to do as well?
Yeah, so a bit of a nightmare, isn't it? You look at that team. It's obviously Liverpool didn't do what they usually do. Van Dijk still picked up a bit of bonus, but Alisson, nothing. Robertson and Trent didn't even get anything. So usually when Liverpool do nothing, they still pick up bonus or maybe an assist or something. So that was largely a wipeout there. Aurier come to my rescue, scoring a goal. Finally started the game after last week, so that was a nice surprise. But yeah, the centre midfield now. My plan originally, I had Mahrez in there, and I was always going to do Mahrez for Vardy, and he was going to be my captain. But then obviously when the news broke that Vardy wasn't playing, I suddenly had to cover a Leicester player because I didn't have Soyuncu or Pereira or anyone. So I bring in Barnes and captain him, which, it obviously didn't go very well. So now I'm kind of left with players I don't really want in midfield. And then, again, unluckiness with the injuries. Deulofeu, coming off in that game. The reason I had Deulofeu was just because he was in a couple of game days where you could potentially use him as a captain. He was a bit of a differential. He was obviously, at the time, Watford were playing really well under Pearson, and he was in that almost playing as a forward. So I thought he was a nice little differential. Turns out that obviously he hasn't done much. Watford dipped a little bit, and then suddenly they've come back. But I get unlucky because Sarr obviously goes off absolutely crazy, and Deulofeu goes off injured. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do with Deulofeu now. I've actually got so much money in the bank because of the fact that I went for Barnes rather than Vardy. So I've got loads of money. So I resisted the temptation to do anything on Sunday. I was considering just getting Fernandes in, and I probably should have, as soon as he scored heavily again. But now I think I'm in a position where if that double gets announced, Deulofeu will be going to Aubameyang or Kevin De Bruyne, basically. So I think I like to have that up my sleeve. But then it still leaves me with the issue of Traore, who I think now is probably a sell. I don't know what you think about that, Joe, but the comments all seem to mention that, he mentioned that they switched back to 3-5-2 with Jota up front again, and it sort of helped them out. And then we've obviously got the injury. He's not starting. He's going off. But it's a tricky price point. So, I don't know what you'll be doing with him, but Jota screams out at me straight away, as does Sarr, as we've already mentioned.
Yeah, well, you hit the nail on the head there. Traore for me, with my players, I like it when their legs and arms are intact. Basically, I think that for me is like the default. That's the bare minimum. Please keep your arms in their sockets, and I can't handle that any longer. And as you said, he's not the best. You say Doherty's doing well. I think in general the Wolves' defence will get you points over the next few weeks, and of course Jota and Jimenez are getting points steadily. So good captaincy options. Traore is just not in the mix. He's 6.9 and Sarr is 6.5. Easy move for me. That one. And I think if you've got a bit, Jota's a bit more. Is be right in saying? But
he's 8.2. I think.
So if you've got a bit more. That's a good move as well. You mentioned, I think they're the two best ones in that type of category at the moment. Let's put your second team up as well, because I find out how you're doing in the rankings with these two. But your second team, yes, it does have Vardy, and yes, it's got Gomez, and it's got flags as well. But I think this one looks I quite like this one. So you've got Alisson, Gomez, Van Dijk, Alexander-Arnold, Soyuncu. And then you've got Richarlison, Traore, Barnes, Grealish, up front Vardy and Salah. I quite like the balance of this one and the mix. And I think Richarlison is a good option still. I think Grealish is still potentially a good option. Barnes gives you, a bit of Leicester coverage there for captaincies. Same with Soyuncu. I think to me that looks like a Vardy and possibly a Liverpool defender, away from getting an Aubameyang and KDB, and the rest of them are quite good. But I don't know, what's your thought on this one? Are you happy with it?
Yeah, I think for me it will be the double game week pending, or just I decide to pull the plug is on Vardy. Will be Vardy to again Aubameyang or Kevin De Bruyne, and then Traore to either Jota or Sarr is probably the way I will fix that team. I'm thinking more I'd prefer to have Jota in that team, because then I haven't got any other Wolves, and I'd probably I still quite fancy a Wolves player, the form they're in and the games they've got. So for me, that's might be what happens. Whether I've got the money left over, I'll have to look. I think I probably do, but that's what I'll be doing with that team. And I think I'm still quite happy with my Liverpool for. I know it's not worked out in the last couple of games, but we can't look past all the other games they've been so good in. And obviously Gomez being out, I think, was a bit of a factor as well. So still pretty confident on that.
Yeah, that's fine. And I think as well, just looking at the flags there, and Aubameyang is interesting because we mentioned about the scheduling isn't quite right for getting Aubameyang in for some of these other players. But it's one of those things. If you've got a number of transfers, I think it could be worth doing. How many transfers have you got at the moment? Because that can affect our decisions.
Yeah, I think I'm on 10 and 9 or something, so very, very low on both teams. So it's every move is painfully thought over, believe me.
So I'll put my teams up just a sort of juxtaposition on these things. So my main one, Henderson in goal, Van Dijk, Alexander-Arnold, Pereira, Sionju. Pereira I got in, by the way, for Baldock. Traore, Barnes was new in for Grealish. Fernandes saving me there. Salah, Jimenez and Mane up front. So with this one, I actually got 50 something or other points, and I'm on the edge of the top 1,000, on the very edge.
Nice.
So this one, I've got 10 transfers left. So yes, you were saying I've got every transfer is precious. So for me, I think I'm going to go about Aubameyang-less in this one, if whether there's a double game week or not. But I like the look of moving one of Salah or Mane on for KDB, because KDB was a player I mentioned last week as a player down the line I know I'm going to want. There's captaincy days. KDB is the most secure option. Laporte's now injured, so he would have been great for Sky. Like Van Dijk, just turns up, gets points. Traore, I'm happy with all of them, really. Reluctantly, I will move one of Mane or Salah on, because I just think it fits with the fixtures, so I'll be down to 9 then. And then I'll be down to 8 with Traore. It's got to go, I think. And I'm going to move him for Sarr. And Watford's fixtures are great. And I've got Jimenez in, so I don't necessarily urgently need Jota. So I love that. I don't know what you think of those moves, but I think that's going to be a precious 2 transfers well spent, hopefully.
Yeah, unfortunately. But the thing is, everyone else is really in the same boat, I think.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to be forced to use those now. It's so funny how it works. Sometimes in Sky, it's like it looks like you won't be touching your team for quite a while, and suddenly 1 week goes by and you need 3 or 4 moves. It's just it's crazy how that can work sometimes. But yeah, really jealous of that, actually. Mane to Kevin De Bruyne, Traore to Sarr, and you've suddenly got basically we said last week or in the last few weeks that De Bruyne wasn't necessarily needed moving forward because of just the way it worked with blanks, Champions League focus. And then what does De Bruyne go and do? He goes and does what he goes and he scores points again. He gets the haul.
He's on penalties.
And he's since added penalties to his roster. So suddenly he looks like you need him again. I think we were talking a little bit before we started about if I had a wild card, what my team would be like. And I think that suddenly the midfield slots are offering lots of different options, which hasn't been the case all season, really. And I was just sat trying to make a team, just messing around a bit. I ended up with a midfield 5. Ooh. So if I read this midfield 5 off to you. So in my team, I've got Kevin De Bruyne, Richarlison, Jota, Sarr, and Fernandes in midfield. Now, to me, those are the best 5 midfielders you can now get.
A lot of value, isn't it? Really good value for them.
Yeah, so you got 3. You got De Bruyne, Richarlison, and Fernandes can all be captains there. Yeah. Sarr can be a captain when Watford play, and Jota definitely can be a captain as well, as long as he's starting, which he appears he's nailed down now. And then I throw in, I've got Van Dijk, Alexander-Arnold in defence. I've still got my Liverpool double up. In goalkeeper, you can have pretty much anyone apart from Alisson. So I got Henderson, or you could have Pope or Dubravka, or whoever you want back there. The third defender slot could be Baldock, could be Soyuncu, or could be James from Chelsea, who I quite like. I would probably put him in there now, to be honest. And then up front, I've got Salah, and around 9 million left, so I could actually fit in Danny Ings or Pukki, or just basically a budget striker that you can rotate in that role. And suddenly to me, that's a pretty damn good team, because Salah obviously can be swapped to anyone as well if need be during that course of the game.
I noticed that Haller, who was someone I had in my FPL team for a while, is suddenly back in the side of West Ham, and West Ham have a single game match day coming up. and he scored on the score sheets. I mean, he's not necessarily a bad striker. He's just, for whatever reasons, it's not working out. I mean, he does lack a lot of pace when you watch him, but
his price is fantastic. I think he was undervalued. I mean, it's turned out he's not been undervalued because, like you say, he hasn't done that well. But on the face of it, when it's a £40 million striker with a top reputation, he's come into our league for a team like West Ham, who was supposed to be very attacking. Obviously, they've changed managers since then, but 8.2 million for a striker is a really good price considering the way they only need a couple of shots and suddenly they've got bonus. So you never know, he could return. Fornals, I think, has been mentioned as well, right? And he's started to step up, hasn't he?
Well, that wild card you mentioned there, obviously with a 5 midfield, you're restricted in terms of you can't get a third striker there. You can't. But at the same time, you could switch one of those midfielders to a forward. But also, you've given yourself that sort of budget striker role. So, that's one for perhaps people's second teams as well. You can think, well, I'm going to take a risk on Haller. I'm going to take a risk on, obviously Danny Ings or whoever. Samatta I mentioned as well from Villa. Just look at those fixtures going, and if you can get some of those single game week days, or you perhaps. I'm not even going to mention Newcastle's Joe Ellington, so but I just wanted to show off that I can pronounce his name correctly, not Joe Ellington as everyone else says. But nevertheless, there's that option there, and as we're getting to squeaky bum time with relegation, you're going to see some of those relegation strikers, hopefully, according to their fans, getting better. And suddenly you're seeing Haller score. How long before we start seeing Pukki score a bit more? Samatta's already getting on the score sheet. There's options there. Maupay at Brighton. Lots of options there. Yeah, I like that. It sounds good. I'll put my second team up just before we look at sort of some of the Twitter questions. But this is my second team. So what you described there is the sort of thing I might consider, actually, some of those other options there. So I've gone for a 4-4-2 in this one. This is the one that's still... I think I've borderline got a grey arrow with this one. I've got about... I'm still at 7,900. So I've got Alisson, Van Dijk, Robertson, Alexander-Arnold, Baldock, Richarlison, Barnes, Grealish, Mount, Jimenez and Mane. 13 transfers here, so a bit of wiggle room. One of my Liverpool defenders probably will go, I think. I also... I'm not keen on Mount. I think Reece James you mentioned could be better. So I think possibly one of my Liverpool defenders for Reece James, and then upgrading Mount to perhaps Jota, or just switching him for the likes of Sarr. As you mentioned, there's a lot of value. But then I've also got to think of KDB and Aubameyang. And I think this one might be a bit more Aubameyang-y. I've got more transfers and I'm looking for a differential, and I think Aubameyang could be the one. Aubameyang is the poster boy of the differentials and the Mavericks. So
yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it's a tough one. I've got. It's not as flexible as my main team, but second team. So I can have a bit of fun with it. But yeah, Liverpool defender, and keep an eye on Aubameyang. I think could be one. And as you mentioned, Reece James. I like that punt. I think he's going to be better than Mount. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Reece James is suddenly looking. Because he's 6.1, I think he is, which is the same as, or in and around the same bracket as Soyuncu and Baldock, who have been really good picks at around that price. Sheffield United's fixtures started to take a turn. Yeah. Soyuncu, Leicester, we all know, aren't in great form, aren't really keeping clean sheets. So I don't really see it as a punt necessarily now, because Chelsea have got great games. I know they're not keeping clean sheets either, but then you're not really losing anything by going away from the other two. I think they're still getting the odd 2-3 points. So really, you're backing James for a few attacking returns and a few man of the matches, which he's got the potential to, because every time he takes to the pitch, he looks like an incredible player. So I think it's a worthwhile punt now at this stage to swap them. Yeah. If you sort of, even if you just sat there now with Soyuncu in your team or Baldock, and you've got other cover for Sheffield United or Leicester, making that swap when you can early on is obviously. I think could see benefits come the end of the season. I don't know how many games we got left. Can you remember how many we got? I think we got quite a few games left. How many are we at?
How many game days as such, or
no, just how many games left in the Premier League?
We're up to the 29th fixture coming up. So
yeah, so you got 10 games there roughly that I think you're gonna over the next 10 games, James will probably outscore both of those. I would have
I
thought
think so
by
too.
enough for it to be worth a swap.
Yeah, I've had to look just before we move on to some of the Twitter questions. I have a list of my captains coming up. So I'm only doing this until the end of April. No, sorry, I'm doing this to the end of March. So the next few weeks really. So the ones I've got in mind: Liverpool, KDB, or Richarlison's a good option. Grealish or Leicester, KDB again, Jimenez, Salah. So Liverpool, Wolves, and then that's Spurs, West Ham, but that may not happen. So, and then you're looking at Liverpool again, then Leicester. So that's the way we're looking at the moment. And so I think Leicester is still important, but they're obviously less important. And my expectations of captaincy are down. But nevertheless, I think they are an important option going forward. So I wouldn't advise anyone to get rid of all your Leicester players, but just have some kind of Leicester coverage. Let's have a look at the Twitter questions. Benny Blanco says, what do we do with Traore now? Surely it's time to move away from him, but he's an awkward price point. Well, as we mentioned, he's not actually an awkward price point. He's a very handy price point, if you like Sarr, which could mean using 2 precious transfers. So if you want to upgrade there, is it worth it? And Hornet says Traore to Sarr looks an easy move. I mean, I've already given my views there. I think Sarr is just too convenient, isn't it?
Yeah, I can understand the thought process that Sarr has been good, but at the end of the day, he is a Watford midfielder. He's not got a history of absolutely, being fantasy gold. I know he's been very good this season and he looks really good, but I can understand that some people might not want to bring in a player because generally in Sky, if you bring in a player, you kind of want that backup of they're going to get a bonus. They've got something else to their name. With Sarr, you wouldn't necessarily put him down for bonus, but he's having that many shots and looks like a man of the match that I'd argue he probably is. The other option we've already talked about, if you can swap to a defender, then you go for James at 6.2 maybe. He's also less than Traore, so that's that. They'd be my 2 picks anyway.
Lee Williams asks, I think Lee's doing very well in Sky at the moment. Looking to move Traore to a West Ham player for the captaincy day. Any worth thinking? He was thinking of Fornals. I mean, that's someone you've already mentioned. A possibility.
I mean, we did mention it last week that West Ham obviously have got those games and you could potentially get 3-for-1s and captains thrown in there to make it a 4-for-1 and stuff like that. And it's just like, who would we go for? And we came up with Fabianski. But West Ham started to show a bit of form. Haller, like you mentioned, could be one, and then Fornals has thrown his name into the ring. He's been playing pretty well. He's actually owned by 0% of people in the top 1K. Yeah. He's owned by 0.5% of the entire game. Yeah. You go through his history, and obviously the last couple of weeks he's got 7 points in 8 weeks. Now one of those was against Liverpool, so that's pretty impressive to be fair. But before that, it's just a sea of 1s, 0s, and 2s.
I had Fornals in my original side, way back in the start of the season. He was my sort of cheeky punt in that role, and if only I'd have waited 30 game weeks.
Yeah, indeed. So I guess that's really just a complete form pick. If he's doing really well and he's feeling it, then I'll always be one who, when you've got the amount of games, at the end of the day, if he just turns up, he's going to be getting you, just those appearance points. So it could work out, but I would still not trust West Ham. That is my feeling.
Same to you. And as a Fornals owner, and this is his, early form season, one of the reasons I got rid, because he just wasn't getting the starts. I was quite happy to keep him. He looked okay when he was playing, and he was picking up the odd tier. But the problem was he just wasn't playing because West Ham they've got loads and loads of midfielders that they can field, and they've got. I think Yarmolenko's going to come back, and sometimes Snodgrass might not even get a game. So they've got quite a few options in midfield, and that was my problem there. Also, they seem a bit more settled now, hopefully. They're finding a tiny bit of form, so you would hope. Antonio, I think, would be one, if you could get him.
Yeah, indeed. If you, it's one of those, if we were playing a daily fantasy game, you would look at Antonio all day, I think, wouldn't you? He's 8.2 million, so it's a nice price because quite a lot of good options are around that bracket. So it could be one, for example, in and around. I haven't looked exactly, but let's say you've got Jota or Maddison or somewhere around that price, you could maybe switch him out for Antonio for 3 games. But
I'm starting to think because I like playing price points. I'm starting to think that the sort of 8.5 price point is quite handy in Sky at the moment. So,
Yeah, across
some
quite a few brackets actually.
yeah, so some of the players that you've mentioned there, I think, I wouldn't mind them in my team, but I can't quite get there. I might have to think about that, but something for other people to think about as well. Adrian Tor asks, do we still keep Liverpool defenders or move one or two depending on how many we have? Well, I'll give my thoughts on that. I think at the moment 4 is probably too much, and I think 3 is okay, and I think 2 is okay. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I'm more than happy with 4. I'm backing it all the way. It's been fantastic. Yeah, I would still say as many as you can fit in your team,
Yeah.
to the point where the only worry is now Liverpool have now lost that game, isn't it? And we've spoke about this before. Really, I don't know whether it's true or not, but people say obviously going for the invincible record, and he would field his best team every single week. We already saw Gomez drops just for a minor injury. Now he's back next week. So was he dropped, or was it? Was he injured really, or was it just they're saving him for Atletico Madrid? Let's wait and see. But now they've lost that game. My worry would be there might be a little bit more rotation. So that would be the only thing. The caveat I would add to if that starts happening, you're going to have to get rid of Liverpool defenders.
Just before we go, let's have a look at who's doing well on the bonus points, who's getting the tiers. Well, I've done it for the last 4 matches. So this is the last 4 matches they have played. So we're looking at Man City are dominating, really, which is handy because they could be a handy side coming up soon, especially if the Arsenal game is added to the fixture schedule. So we've got Mendy, Fernandinho, Gundogan and Rodri are all there. They're all getting tiers for things. Van Dijk, as you can see, perennial, steps on the pitch. There you go. Here's some points. Jorginho, who is suspended, I believe, for a couple of matches for Chelsea, but nevertheless, awkward price there. Krul and Ramsdale. So you're looking at some some differential budget goalkeepers there, but I'm not particularly interested in them. Just didn't make the cut on bonus total. I think he got 8 is Fernandes, so you can see what Fernandes is offering his owners there. And as you said, already within the top 1,000 or so, he's looking absolutely. They're snapping him up. So a differential, no more. But yeah, any other that caught your eye with the tiers?
Well, we did say I said it. I think it was last week. I said Rodri was the one where I said he still could be, if you can't get to De Bruyne, an interesting pick just because he's 8.5. I think.
Yeah.
He's getting bonus every week.
That price point again.
The thing with him was he going to start? Because there's quite a lot of rotation with Rodri to begin with. But the guy keeps scoring goals as well. I mean, he does pop up with the odd goal. He's got an absolute screamer in him, and he's handy from set pieces. So I do actually still really like Rodri. And I think if you're looking at your team and trying to think, how the hell can I fit De Bruyne in? I literally can't do it without making multiple swaps. And suddenly Man City get a couple of captain up days. I can see a strong argument for getting Rodri, actually. Obviously you want De Bruyne over him if you can, but I think he's a nice backup. I don't really see any other option for Man City to go to, sadly. I think it's De Bruyne or Rodri, anyone else you bring in. Sure, if you get to see the lineup, you can go for maybe a 1-game week punt, but then you never know they're going to play the week after. So they're about the only 2 options for me.
I mean, one player we haven't mentioned is Aguero. I'm presuming you might have the same thoughts as me. We just don't know whether he's going to start or not. If you know the team news beforehand, go for it, because he is still getting, he is still doing well in terms of shots. He's still doing well in terms of goals, obviously. But as a long-term option, I prefer the likes of KDB. Just security of starts.
Yeah, it's also the fact that with Aguero's had this over his head for a number of seasons now. But what often sort of offset that was the fact that when he did play, he'd be banging in braces and hat-tricks. He'd be like, oh, God's sake. Yeah. But of late, Aguero's been getting the game time against some weak opposition and not even getting that. Yeah. So if he hasn't, he has always got it in his locker. It's Aguero. We know he has. But when you're not seeing those returns either, suddenly it seems a risk way too far. It's already a risk when he's even returning, but when he's not even getting the points, I think it's a stay well away at the moment. Jesus is just, Pep almost sees them as an equals. I think that's the thing, and you just have to be concerned as some strange team decisions. Like, you know, the lineup for the cup was a surprise. Was it not a surprise for you? We just never know when it's coming.
You don't know. And the Real Madrid one, everyone's thinking there's a surprise, and hey presto, it worked. There's certain attributes that Pep knows in training. You know, he's a good manager after all. So
He's not bad.
You know, he knows best. Okay. Thanks so much for joining me, Luke. A lot of the stats and stuff we've been mentioning from the members area, Fantasy Football Scouts, so do check that out about all the membership details. You get that each week or for the rest of the season or each month, whichever. You can get it. You can get it temporary, long term, whatever. So thanks so much for your time, and good luck with the impending game week.
Yeah, you too, Joe. Good luck. See you on the other side.
Goodbye all.
Bye.